Join me for a trip back in time to 1995, the age of Chrono Trigger. Surely this will be the only time jump we take today. Chrono Trigger was Square's global RPG release for the year, and their team was clearly dedicated to their work. This story is not based on any of their other franchises and instead takes place in the present day of 1000 AD. Oh dear, it looks like I've accidentally made another time jump already. So we begin with a new world and time period and of course new characters. The preview from the title screen doesn't give any hints at the story, instead showing a few different characters in battle, confirming the RPG status. It immediately presents a dynamic soundtrack led by Yasunori Mitsuda. This was his first soundtrack composed for a video game, having only worked on the sound design of a few Square titles beforehand. It was an incredible achievement, playing with various instrumentations and textures and chord structures. The legendary composer of the Final Fantasy series, Uematsu, also contributed a few pieces to the soundtrack. So, at the very least, you know the music will be special. This game is regarded as one of the best RPGs of all time. The story is not as deep as others, but it's easy to follow while offering plenty of unexpected moments. The characters themselves are well written. The battle system introduces new mechanics, now with a focus on teamwork, bringing endless strategies into the game. This is in fact a good RPG, perhaps geared more towards a younger audience while still carrying appeal for everyone. Is it as great as everyone says it is? Well, I don't think I can express that properly without giving spoilers on some level. I can't keep any section of this review completely spoiler-free, but I will refrain from giving away major spoilers for now. Consider this section as having level 1 spoilers, and I will level up the spoiler warnings as the review continues. Reaching the year 1000 AD requires a celebration, and the story begins with a millennial fair at Lean Square. The silent protagonist, Chrono, is visiting to see the futuristic inventions of his friend Luca, and both of these characters can be renamed. They have a 5-letter limit, so it's restricted as usual for these older RPGs. Chrono accidentally knocks Marley over at the fair, and that's how the first full party of 3 forms. The fair offers several activities for the player, including a test of the battle system against Gato, a training robot made by Luca. I had no idea robots existed in the year 1000. It all feels like a real fair, since you earn silver points which can be redeemed at other events in the fair. However, that robot isn't the show everyone came for. Luca is ready to show off her finest invention, the telepod. It's true, humans have known how to teleport objects for over a millennium now. The demonstrations are successful, and it safely teleports humans too. Of course, everyone wants to experience it for themselves, so more people line up for teleportation. What happens next is a fairly big spoiler if you really don't want to know anything, but I'll call it a minor spoiler because it happens almost immediately after beginning the game, and it introduces one of the central mechanics. Chrono Trigger's big story appeal is that it features time travel, partially explaining the game's name. The first time gate is opened when Marley tries out the telepod, and her family pendant is the cause of this unusual event. She disappears through the time gate with her pendant mysteriously left behind, and after some deliberation, Chrono and Luca search for her through the time gate. I was surprised to see this so early on, before any real battles, but it shapes the story nicely, and better explains why there are monsters attacking. We're not in the happy present day anymore. We're in 600 AD, and there are monsters in the forest, alongside the bigger issues the kingdom is dealing with. You'll notice a few similarities between this alternative time and your present day. This is the year 600 AD under the reign of King Guardia the 21st, whereas the king from Chrono's time is King Guardia the 33rd. The shape of the land is similar, with the castle in the same location behind the forest, and the towns are built differently. At the time of release, several Super Nintendo games were mastering the concept of dual overworld maps, helping the games become instant classics. Chrono Trigger is no exception. However, a time travel game poses infinite possibilities, and there are in fact more than 2 time periods to travel between. Before I get carried away making more jumps through time though, let's look at battles. The system for this game starts basic and becomes more impressive as you make progress. Visually, it's like a crossover between 2 different Square series, Final Fantasy and Mana. There isn't a cut to a battle scene, but the screen locks around the enemies, creating a battle scene within the main world. It then proceeds with the active time battle system, where the player can input commands for the characters when their bar is filled. By default, the enemies can attack while you're choosing your attacks, and you can change to wait mode in the main menu if you need more time to think. In most Square RPGs of the era, I resort to wait mode, but I was able to stay in the fully active mode for Chrono Trigger aside from 2 particular bosses. Well, what can your characters do in battles? There's the basic attack using their weapons, and they can use items such as healing potions as expected. The party will have to reach a certain point before they can use magic, but the game's MP is used for more than just magic. Instead of a magic menu, there's a tech menu where each character will gradually learn more special attack techniques as they level up. The individual tech is character specific, but it can then be combined with other characters to create dual tech. So take Chrono and Luca here at the start. When Chrono learns Cyclone and Luca learns Flame Toss, the two can perform the dual tech Fire Whirl. This will damage enemies within range of Chrono's spinning sword with an added fiery effect, usually causing greater damage. It requires both characters to be ready for their turn, and both need MP available. The maximum party size is 3, and you'll have a few different characters available later on. The fun part is that every pair of characters can learn 3 dual techniques with each other. And yes, much deeper into the game, certain trios can learn triple tech. It's a fluid battle system, and I enjoyed experimenting with it. I do think the game took too long to feature interesting battles though. The teaching of the system was fine, it just accelerated slowly. I also found that the battle menu could sometimes hide enemies, which was odd. You can press the Y button to toggle the menu's position, which was considerate of the developers, and this applies to dialogue outside of battles too. It's not a particularly elegant solution for battles though. Enemies can move around on the screen, and sometimes they'll be covered no matter where the menu is. Now, despite some slightly boring battles early on, I will say that the bosses are always good and often are different and creative. Those little battle quirks were my biggest issue and one of the only flawed parts in the entire game. There's a lot of time spent in battle, so it's a relatively common issue, but not as problematic as it may seem. The other recurring issues I had were mostly from playing a 30-plus-year-old RPG without its manual. I would often complete a quest and have no idea where to go next. I also missed some mechanics outside of battles. I was a couple hours in when I finally realized you could run, and well beyond the halfway point when I learned how to change party members on the spot. I'm not criticizing the game for these mechanics, rather passing along information for those who may be deciding whether or not to play this game for the first time. And now, that's as far as I can go while giving minimal spoilers. Our spoiler warning is now at level 2, where I will cover some moderate spoilers such as new characters and locations without spoiling major plot points and endgame content. One of the first big reveals is about Marley after she's lost in time travel. It turns out she's absolutely fine because the year 600 welcomes back their Queen Lean, wife of King Guardia the 21st. Or is she Queen Lean? No, she's Princess Nadia of the year 1000, and she looks so much like her ancestor that the people of the past thought they had found their missing queen. There are various events with the royal family in the past and present, often trying to add humor to the story. I mentioned that this game may be written for younger players, and that's most obvious with the royal family plot. There's still plenty to enjoy as an adult though, such as the courtroom drama. I made Chrono look as guilty as possible to see what would happen, although it's rigged against him regardless. He will be found guilty and given the death penalty, and the real change in gameplay is whether you wait for the day or attempt a prison break. Chrono Trigger is perhaps the most successful game I've seen at giving players gameplay choices like these. Often a game forces a decision that makes me feel like I'm missing out on the other option, and I didn't feel that way here. In the Middle Ages, you'll meet a knight named Frog who is in fact a frog. His backstory and character arc are both perfectly written, and yet he may not be the best written character in the game. He has a temporary role with the party in the search for Queen Lean, returning as a permanent character later when the Masamune is recovered. The kingdom is fighting an ongoing war against Magus, and Frog considers him to be a personal, lifelong nemesis. There's also the bleak future jumping forward to 2300 AD, but you're still hungry. That's right, you can save your own game and fully heal your party in the Enertron, but you will not find food for the remaining people. The future is overwhelmingly industrial with a bunch of mutants and plenty of robots. Luca fixes up a robot and creatively calls him Robo, except his theme sounds suspiciously like a Rickroll, so I renamed him to Ricko. Because Luca helped him, he's nothing like the other robots and barely has an evil wire in his body. So you can recruit a frog who speaks in Olden English and a robot who goes Ricko mode in battles. But you're still hungry. After your first visit to the future, the game will explain why your party can only have 3 characters. You see, when more than 3 people enter a time gate at the same time, they will overload and the travelers will exit at the end of time. Finding the end was an accident, but it becomes very useful. Gasper, a guru from the ancient kingdom Zeal, is stranded here due to the influence of Lavos. This is when whispers of the main antagonist get louder and louder, conveying more about this mysterious and incredibly dangerous being without fully revealing what to expect. While stranded, Gasper built a small courtyard, and in the game it's first used for faster connections between time periods. Any time period you need has a gate in the end of time, just don't take 4 people with you. Specchio, Master of War, also lives here, and he's your friend. He teaches your party elemental magic and gives rewards if you can beat him in an intense practice battle. One of the available time gates from the courtyard will take you all the way back to 65 million BC. The dinosaurs are less prominent than I expected, but I liked the stories here. You can recruit Isla, who I would describe as prehistoric Catwoman, and learn the methods of her tribe. Money will do nothing here, so if you want to buy their surprisingly strong equipment, you'll need to hunt for feathers and fangs and more. You'll have the opportunity to visit 12,000 BC too, in the Ice Age with a surprising level of civilization. This game gets better and better as it goes, which is how any game should be. As all the parts click together, it gets more thrilling, and I can see why everyone says this is a fantastic game. Almost any RPG will have a slow start, and this is no exception, although there are several things I would change to make the early game better. The start was good when it could have been great. However, by the time you recruit the 6 aforementioned party members, you'll forget the complaints you had. You'll be engrossed in the war against Magus' army and the anticipation of Lavos. Interestingly, the best parts of the game are entirely optional. This is Square's classic endgame design, where at a certain point you could go to the end of the game, but there are several side quests you probably should complete. And I'd like to talk about them, so now we're up to level 3 spoilers. From here to the conclusion, I'll cover some major plot points and bonus endgame content. If I had any doubts about this game's greatness, they disappeared by the time I fought Magus. I'd already had my first open-mouthed moment watching Frog's backstory, a seemingly innocent cutscene until Magus cursed a random knight named Glenn to take a new form. It explains Frog's hatred for the wizard, but it only makes sense that Frog's character reveal is topped by Magus himself. I didn't think much of him at first, but it turns out that Magus is one of the most expertly written characters in any game. Thanks to the power of time travel, you meet him as a boy, although you wouldn't know. The hint was there all along with their matching hair color. You also wouldn't guess they're the same person considering you meet his younger self in the Ice Age, whereas his grown self torments the Middle Ages. So what happened there? In the middle of the Ice Age, there's a magic kingdom. Of course there is. It's a divine atmosphere built with beautiful floating islands and waterfalls and a breathtaking soundtrack. This kingdom, known as Zeal, is pivotal to the story because of their queen's deranged actions. She's obsessed with the idea of immortality and thinks Lavos' powers can be harnessed to provide eternal life. Instead, her attempt angers the otherworldly being, and this causes cracks in time. I'm paraphrasing slightly. That's how Gasper found the end of time, and the queen's disowned son landed in the Middle Ages to grow up on his own. That edgy little boy, with the rather unfortunate given name of Janus, grew up to be an edgy little man tormenting knights for fun. How about a redemption arc? It's up to you. You have the opportunity to recruit Magus as a 7th and final party member. You can rename him like your other members, let's call him Hugh instead. Or if you approach him with Frog, there will be no redemption. Frog gets his revenge and finally kills his nemesis. Hugh is a useful character to have since he can use all the elemental magic, but you won't have too much trouble if you don't recruit him. One more Hugh note, when you interact with him as a boy for the first time, he tells you that someone in your party will die soon. I don't know if I can call that foreshadowing when it's so blunt, but the thought was always in the back of my mind. I thought it would be interesting if Chrono was killed off since he's the lead protagonist, but I knew that would never happen. And then it did. Chrono would soon sacrifice himself during the first encounter with Lavos. Fortunately, this is a game about time travel, so you can rewrite history to bring him back. Except it's kind of a clone and not the real person? I'm sure it's fine. At least he can still get home in time for dinner. Now, when it comes to the optional late-game quests, I have a nitpick. It's only a small issue, but the game built up to something that turned out to be underwhelming. As you begin traveling through time, you'll find some dark chests that won't open. They're sealed with a mysterious power, or force, or energy. When you finally have the ability to open them, you can revisit areas throughout the world to claim their rewards. That was the underwhelming part. There were a couple good finds, while the others weren't quite what I was looking for. As for Gasper's cryptic side quests, they all featured great dungeon design, and a few of them got surprisingly emotional. Even Robo dealt with emotions. This cemented the greatness of the game, and I thought the side quests offered the best content. They help prepare you for the end of the game, and while they're not needed to beat the game, you would miss out on a definitive experience. Beyond that, it's Lavos time. What's the deal with Lavos anyway? Who or what is he? The game's answer is quite a shock. You may have heard that an asteroid hit the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs, but Chrono would tell you otherwise because he was there. That asteroid was a parasitic alien named Lavos. Fast forward 65 million years and he causes an apocalypse. I have opinions on the final boss. It's a sequence rather than a single fight. The first part takes an absurdly long time as he imitates previous bosses, and the real finale was brutal. Well, I don't care if the game did did me dirty, this is still a great sequence. The idea of a decoy target for the final fight was interesting too. I think the concept might have fit better somewhere other than the final boss, but the intensity of this battle is virtually unmatched. Eventually, Lavos will be defeated, the apocalypse will be no more, and the future will heal. Chrono makes it home for dinner after all, and his mom has no idea of his adventures. Maybe she'll get to see for herself though. The time gates begin to close, and right at the last moment, Chrono's mom chases their dog through the gate. At least that's what happened in my ending. There are a few different possibilities. Now that we've reached the end, I'd like to apologize. I get it, I really do. This game is special and I see it all now. I just don't think it's the best. If I'm comparing it to other Square RPGs, I found Final Fantasy VI to be a more complete game, and perhaps it was suited more to my style. And yet, if I compare it to most other games before it, it's clearly better. The quality of this game had rarely been seen before. It was mind-blowing then, and much of it still is now. It's poetic that a game about time may be timeless. Therefore, my final score for Chrono Trigger will be 9 out of 10. It's a must-play if you like RPGs, and if you don't, you may still like it. I'm not convinced it's the RPG that will make you like the genre, but I've heard multiple people say this was the game that kickstarted their love of RPGs. Don't give up on it too soon. Let it show you the game it really is. I believe anyone playing for the first time will find a point when it all clicks and they realize why this game is so loved. If you're looking for your first playthrough, there have been a few re-releases of the original. The most accessible version is on the PC, which supports widescreen thanks to a surprise update in 2022. The mobile port is available too if you need your retro RPGs on the go. And before that port existed, there was a remake for DS with minor added content, again portable and playable anywhere. I have no idea if this version is any good, however. As we return to 1995 now, let's take a look at how the game was received. Nintendo Power gave an extensive preview spanning 12 pages covering character abilities, boss strategies, and more. Their Power rankings total 16.3 out of 20, which is lower than the game deserved, but higher than they scored other RPGs. Electronic Gaming Monthly said the best part of the game was everything, and their average score was 9.25 out of 10. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Chrono Trigger for the SNES initially released in 1995? Like the video to see the future, and subscribe to prevent an apocalypse. As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self.
What? Someone turned the frogs gay.